The room was filled with silence, the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. The golden sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, casting a warm glow over everything, but inside, the atmosphere was anything but warm. Emily stood there, holding her newborn baby in trembling arms, her eyes fixed on the tiny face that had just changed her entire world. Across from her stood Daniel, the man she once believed would stand by her forever. But today, something was different. His smile was forced, his eyes distant, and his silence unbearable. Just hours ago, everything seemed perfect. The doctors had congratulated them, nurses smiled warmly, and the world felt complete. But now, Daniel hadn't said a single word since he looked at the baby. Emily's heart began to race as fear slowly crept in. "Say something," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel finally looked up, but his expression was cold, calculating. This child isn't mine," he said bluntly. The words hit her like a storm, leaving her breathless. "What?" she gasped, her grip tightening around the baby. "How can you even say that?" But Daniel had already made up his mind. He stepped back, shaking his head. "I've done the math, Emily. The timeline doesn't add up. I won't raise someone else's child." Tears welled up in her eyes as disbelief turned into heartbreak. This was the man who promised her forever, who held her hand through every struggle, yet now, at the most vulnerable moment of her life, he was abandoning her. "You're wrong," she pleaded. "I would never betray you." But Daniel didn't listen. He turned away, heading toward the door, leaving behind not just Emily, but his own child. Days turned into weeks, and the pain never faded. Emily found herself alone, raising the baby in a small apartment far from the life she once knew. Every night, she would look at her child and whisper promises that she would never leave, never doubt, never break trust the way Daniel did. Life was hard. Bills piled up, sleep became a luxury, and loneliness became her constant companion. But she kept going, driven by a strength she didn't know she had. Meanwhile, Daniel tried to move on. He buried himself in work, convincing himself he made the right decision. But deep down, something didn't sit right. The memory of Emily's tears haunted him, and the image of the baby lingered in his mind. One day, unable to silence the doubt any longer, he decided to take a DNA test using a sample he had secretly taken before leaving. Days later, the results arrived. His hands trembled as he opened the envelope. And then, everything shattered. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The room spun around him. The truth hit harder than anything he had ever felt. The child was his. His own flesh and blood. And in that moment, regret consumed him completely. Without wasting a second, Daniel rushed to find Emily. He searched everywhere, old addresses, mutual friends, even social media, until finally, he found her. She was sitting in a small park, gently rocking the baby in her arms, smiling softly despite everything she had been through. Daniel approached slowly, his heart pounding. "Emily," he called out. She looked up, her expression immediately guarded. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. He swallowed hard, holding out the test results with shaking hands. "I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "The baby, he's mine." Emily stared at him, her eyes unreadable. For a moment, there was silence again, but this time, it was different. It was heavy with everything left unsaid. "You already made your choice," she replied quietly. "When I needed you the most, you left." Daniel dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But please, give me one chance to make things right." Emily looked down at her child, then back at Daniel. This wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about trust, something that once broken is never the same again. She took a deep breath. "You don't get to come back just because it's convenient for you," she said firmly. "Being a father isn't about DNA. It's about being there, and you weren't." Daniel lowered his head, knowing she was right. But then, the baby stirred and let out a soft cry. Instinctively, Daniel looked up, his eyes filled with emotion. For the first time, he truly saw his child, not as a doubt, not as a question, but as a part of himself. Emily hesitated, then slowly stepped forward and placed the baby gently into his arms. "This is your son," she said softly. What you do next will define who you are. Daniel held the baby carefully, tears falling freely as he realized the weight of what he almost lost. And in that moment, he made a silent promise, not just to the child, but to himself, that he would spend every day proving he deserved a second chance. Because sometimes, life doesn't give you what you deserve, it gives you what you're willing to fight for. And sometimes, the biggest lesson comes after the biggest mistake.